Paris. City of love, romance and dreams. So they say. I used to say it too. But ever since that day, the day of the murder, I've always associated my beloved Paris with death. I was at home having a bath when my editor called.
Collard, get your ass over to the Palais Royal now. You got an interview. With Pierre Carchon. Yes, the Pierre Carchon. No photos, so leave your gear at home. He asked for you personally. Don't ask me why. Anyhow, this could be big, so if he makes a pass, don't forget. Just smile, say yes, and keep taking notes.
So charming and so very apt. Pierre Carchon was a media king, a national hero, and one of the most infamous adulterers in Europe. He and his wife Imelda were just one step down from royalty. Whoa, I hate mimes, but unless you humor them, they don't go away. Here I was, the palace of the Media King and the Ice Queen. I pressed the doorbell and set in motion a chain of events which would change my life forever.
Yes? What is it?
Madame, my name is Nico Collard. I'm here to see Monsieur Carchon.
Come up, we're on the first floor.
Madame Carchon, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yes, I'm sure.
The Ice Queen was certainly living up to her reputation. Will you be staying for the interview?
Mademoiselle, I know little of my husband's business affairs, and I care even less. I certainly have no intention of watching him pore over yet another pretty little journalist.
Pretty? You're too kind, madame.
Ah, the talented and very beautiful Mademoiselle Collard. Such a pleasure to meet you at last.
Monsieur Carchon, I am honored.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
Call me Pierre, please. But I do not flatter you idly. I was a friend of your father. He was a great man.
My father? He never mentioned.
He and I were very close. And then his death. So tragic. I must... Imelda, your damned cat's in my study again. Another Ming vase, I suppose. Excuse me for one moment, my dear girl.
You journalists are getting younger each year.
Perhaps it's the rest of the world getting older, madame. That was no cat.
God, what? Monsieur Carchon!
He's dead. I must call the police. You'd better stay here.
There was a man. It was the mime. Do you think he...
Well, I believe we can rule out suicide, don't you?
No wonder they called her the Ice Queen. She would have been top of my list of suspects if I hadn't seen the attacker myself. And if I hadn't come across a couple of murders just like this already. One of the most important men in Europe murdered And here was I, Nico Coulard, alone at the scene of the crime. Should I wait for the cops? Or start my own investigation? It was a no-brainer.
Hej, cześć, witam, tutaj Krzywy. O, mamy takie okienko, dobrze. Zapraszam do oglądania serii Broken Sword Director's Cut, to jest Shadow of the Templars, czyli pierwsza część gry, którą przeszedłem bardzo dawno temu, nawet wiele razy, od chwili, kiedy miała premiera, czyli aż w 98 roku. Grę znam na pamięć, ale na obecnych komputerach no niestety nie działa. Zgadnijcie czemu. Bo zostały zrobione w 98 roku. Jak widzicie, tradycyjnie wszystko rysowane ręcznie. Niedługo wyjdzie drugi epizod piątej części Broken Sworda. I w Director's Cut, jak widzicie, mamy taką dodatkową scenkę. Nie wiem, czy graliście pierwszą część. Ja jej nie znam, bo to jest nowa. Pierwsza część zaczynała się wybuchem bomby w kawiarni, gdzie poznajemy George'a, a potem Nico. Tutaj zaczynamy z kolei już Nico i morderstwo. Ja tego mimo już charakterystykę poznaję, kto to był. To będzie clown, który również będzie w restauracji oraz później z fabułą się go pozna. Nie chcę wam coś tej zabawy, jeżeli w to nie
A
graliście.
bust of Pierre Cauchon, humble servant of La France.
Dobrze. Słuchajcie, najpierw zacznę książki, potem ciało. Już tak jakoś mam.
obscure first editions.
Tak prosiliście mnie lub tam parę komentarzy, że bardzo się podobała seria, więc postanowiłem zrobić serię poświęconą właśnie Broken Sword wszystkim
His
częściom.
eyes seemed to follow me around the room.
I na dniach powinna być właśnie piąta część. Gdyż miała być do
Mimes and gums
końca
don't
trzeciego
usually go
kwartału.
together, but I
Aż
had an
mamy
idea
połowę
that this
marca.
was no ordinary mime. I'd come across this murderer before and written about him.
Dlatego
The
też taka
costume
rozdzielczość
killer,
jest inna
at
w
least
tej
that's
grze.
what I'd called him.
Nie jest to z mojej winy, lecz to jest dlatego, że gra z 98 roku, no i wiadomo, cudów się nie zrobi,
It was one
prawda?
of my hair clips. My favorite, in fact. It must have fallen when I was knocked down.
A, to
Some
mam-
people hate searching corpses for clues. Me, I'm okay with it. Reminds me of an old boyfriend. In his pocket, I found a ticket stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. Taking the ticket meant I tampered with the evidence. There was no going back now.
Mogę stwierdzić tyle, że jeżeli on zginął od tej osoby, to był zamieszany w niezły spisek.
Cauchon had been shot. I closed his eyes. It was the least I could do for the poor fellow.
A co my tu patrzyliśmy? Zobaczmy okno. O,
A small round piece of glass had been cut out of the pane. This was a professional job. I didn't want to cut myself and leave blood on the glass. Call me old-fashioned, but I like to keep my DNA to myself.
ale odciski zostawi.
The killer must have used a ladder to reach the window. He was long gone. Guess he folded that ladder up, popped it in his pocket and took it with him.
Tradycyjnie podczas dialogów starał się nie przerywać oraz podczas scenek. A z tego pokoju już zrobiliśmy wszystko. O, można szybciej przechodzić klikając 2 razy.
The
No,
police
w piątej
could turn
części
up
mi
at
tego
any minute.
brakowało.
Somewhere there were clues to the murder, and I needed to find them.
No, już tutaj coś mamy. Już mi ta...
A Louis
Obelisk.
XIV table with an antique cloth. Imelda had taste. But hey, with a husband that rich, taste is easy. A medieval
14.
pageant. Original, no doubt. The tapestry must have cost a fortune.
Bo był zamieszany w spisek.
I reckoned that cloth might just turn out to be useful.
O,
Even my
Pistolet.
fingernail wouldn't fit into such a small hole.
szkoda, że są zaznaczone te miejsca. Znaczy, czy w opcjach można je wyłączyć. Spróbujemy tym.
Aha! Nico, you are just so damn good at this
Wiesz,
stuff.
od razu jest podpowiedź, gdzie co jest.
Instead of because and hey, she'd
Zobaczyć,
been
czy w
rude to
opcjach
me,
to
so
można
she had it
wyłączyć.
coming.
No, aż gada przez policję
It was a
albo z
tube
kimś
of
innym.
acrylic paint, French ultramarine. Just the color I was after for my bathroom.
Uwielbiam
I'm
właśnie
sorry, I
te-
have to go.
te
Someone is...
wygiery. Aha. Trzeba rozmawiać.
Young lady, what are you doing?
Oh, this paint. It's my favorite color.
For God's sake, keep the damn stuff.
Co mamy na obrazie?
Imelda had talent, but I certainly wasn't going to tell her
To żona
that.
maluje. Rozmawiają z nią.
Excuse me, madame.
Niedługo poznamy inspektora
Yes?
Mu, którego już możecie znać w 5. części.
I am so sorry for your loss, madame.
No, you're not. You're a journalist. Journalists don't feel sorry.
Not true.
We shall see.
Taka
Why
miła.
did your husband send for me? What did he want to discuss?
I have no idea. His business was his business.
He never told you anything.
No, and frankly, I preferred it that way.
I jakby też to powiedzieć, no jest po
How
angielsku.
did your husband know my father?
I have no idea.
You didn't know him? Thierry Collard?
Pierre knew a lot of people I didn't know, most of them women.
Jest po angielsku i nie będę tłumaczyć. Wierzę, że znacie ten język. Jak będą najwyżej jakieś tam ważniejsze sprawy, to może mi się zdarzy
Why
coś
would a
wymknąć.
mime want to kill your husband?
Pierre had plenty of enemies. Half the husbands in Paris for a start. This is quite a scoop for you. I suppose you're already inventing the headlines.
Just because I am a journalist.
Don't patronize me. You're all cut from the same cloth. Do you have any moral sense at all?
Tak, jesteśmy
Yes.
dobrzy.
That's why I do this job.
You do it to see your name in print.
Nie.
As if my editor gets the byline, I just do the work.
Well, don't expect my sympathy.
The police will be here soon, madame. Is there anybody you would like me to contact? Family, friends?
No, I have no family. Pierre and I were... He was all I had, really. Not much, was it? The dutiful wife. That was my role. He never talked, never let me in.
I know one thing, madame.
What?
If you want to find out who killed your husband, then you let me do the job, not the police.
Why? How do I know I can trust you?
Bo jesteśmy
Your
dobrzy.
husband invited me here today because he needed me. I think he knew somebody wanted to kill him, and
Nie
he knew I
związanego z
could
jej
help.
ojcem.
I doubt it was your
Już
database
faktycznie
he
w
was
Broken
on.
Swordzie w
You're
pierwszej
right.
części było
I
parę
was onto his
niedokończonych
killers
wątków,
already,
które później
I am
nie były
sure of it.
dokończone.
Please, you owe it to
Może
him.
ten dyrektor
I
z
don't
kata tak
know.
zwany.
All I need is a
Rozwinął
few
te
more
wątki.
minutes to look around before the police come.
You really do have a moral sense, don't you?
No.
I trust so few people. And perhaps Pierre really did think that you could help. Of course it wouldn't have stopped him seducing you too. Here, take this.
Oho.
It's the key to the drawing room next to the library at the end of the hall.
A,
It
tam
was
były te drzwi
Pierre's
takie
room.
jedno
I
faktycznie.
rarely went in there. I couldn't. I was too scared of what I might find.
Thank you. I promise you won't regret this.
Abi udało się przekonać, że coś można zrobić z telefonem?
There was no one I needed to phone.
Nie. No szybciej, Niko. Brakuje tej rączki na bok, co tak przewija. Pewnie tu nie jest widoczna. O, mamy klucz tutaj, pewnie. Powie, że zamknięty i trzeba użyć. Owszem. A to jest ten klucz.
Now we were getting somewhere.
Co nam da włączyć?
I didn't need the lights on. It was light enough already.
Aha, czyli prędzej z zasłonami trzeba będzie strzelić.
The painting showed the Cachons together, in love. As the poet said, the past is a different country.
Też mi
Or
się
did I
nie
read
podobał
that in
ten
a
obraz,
fortune
to
cookie?
zwłaszcza klamka.
There was the very faintest of clicks.
Coś w biurku trzeba wcisnąć?
This wasn't the time for me to lie on this sofa doing my Marie Antoinette impression. Though it is very popular at parties, especially with gay guys. Don't ask me why.
He. Dobry żarcik. Albo fakt. O, kolejne drzwi.
As expected, the desk was yet another priceless antique. Yawn. The
Słonik.
blotter and in tray had clearly been placed with mathematical precision. My heart skipped a beat.
A?
It was a carved elephant. But not just any carved elephant. It had been made by my father.
Taka pamiątka.
I knew for certain because in my apartment I had its exact twin, carved into a box he had made. So Carchon had known my father. They really must have been friends.
No,
I decided to
raczej tak.
take the carved elephant. It clearly meant nothing to Imelda.
Nawet nie skojarzy, jeżeli to był...
I didn't need a sheet of blotting paper. Not while it was blank.
Ona
I
nie jest
didn't
biała.
want to take the tray, but I knew that I
Coś na
could
niej
use
pewnie
it.
jest. A co tam, zabawimy się. Zobaczymy, czy farbę idzie walić.
The paint would have just soaked into the blotting paper, but the idea was good.
No. Zobaczmy to, tutaj. Te drzwi. Co skrywają w sobie.
Locked, not so.
A ten klucz co? To do sejfu pewnie. Nie. O właśnie, raz tym razem spróbuję.
It didn't work, but I guess
O, teraz poszło.
behind the picture was a safe. The safe
Mamy klucz. Ale szyfru nie znamy. Ja nie ma szyfru. O,
in the safe was some kind of artifact.
skądś
There
to
were
kojarzę.
strange symbols on its surface.
It
It looked like
to
the
już Włocha w
printer's
pierwszej
blocks I'd
części
made at art
normalnie
school.
mi się
If there
kojarzy.
was one thing I'd learned about symbols, they are always important. But these symbols scratched into stone were impossible to read. I needed to find a way of printing
No i
them.
mamy farby, nie
At
mamy
least
białą
the stone
kartkę
was
papieru,
round.
prawda?
But what could I use for ink? And what could I print on? Sure, I was stealing, but I knew Imelda didn't know about the artifact, and Carchon was past caring.
No właśnie. Coś z tym trzeba zrobić. Też sobie jakieś trzeba taki sejfik i schowek w ogóle. Trzeba skończyć partię szachów i się otwiera jakiś regał. Ale to bardzo daleka przyszłość. Spróbujmy farby wywalić na...
Putting the paint straight on the cylinder would be too messy. The paint would have just soaked.
Nie. To już położę może to tutaj.
The blotter was flat.
Co to w ogóle jest?
The blotter was flat already. Rolling the cylinder.
Nie. A może nie na kartkę, tylko tutaj. O, właśnie. No, niebieska farba.
I'd spread blue paint over the bottom of the tray. It was, but also, I didn't. In a way, I was going back to art school.
No. I przejedźmy teraz tubką.
I rolled
Tak,
the
schowała do
artifact
kieszeni.
in the paint until it was complete. I didn't.
Nie, teraz mogę zrobić to tym, tak? Też. Taka serwetka też taka była, nie? Z tym wzorem. Zauważyliście?
Genius! The roller and the paint worked just as I planned. But what did it say?
Łacina.
It was some kind of coded message. It read, subjudice. I may not have learned a lot as a journalist, but that was a term I knew well. It means a legal case that is before the courts. Below it was a sequence of letters that made no sense. I suddenly realized there was a connection between the boat ticket and the coded message. The boat ticket was stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. The conciergerie on the Ile de la Cité, by the river, housed the ancient law courts. So, subjudice could in this case mean literally under the law courts, below the conciergerie. I was pretty sure I'd found all I could here. And besides, all this opulence was making me pine for my regular life of poverty. This was a huge story. It was also one heck of a puzzle with a lot of pieces missing. But I was going to crack it. And if I could just remember the name of that fancy prize you get for being an ace journalist, I was definitely going to win it this time.
Dobrze. Pewnie policja przyjechała. Co to jest za książka? A, taki powiedz dziennie, co się zrobiło, to taki dziennik. A, tego chyba nie było w Broken Swordzie.
Locked. Not surprising, really.
No ale zamknięte. To chyba możemy stąd już wyjść, nie? Pewnie policja przyjechała. Dali światło.
I didn't...
Nie, nic nie można zrobić nowego. Może żona K coś będzie wiedzieć. Czy już wdowa raczej.
Did you find anything useful?
This carving. Do you know anything about it?
It was Pierre's. What does the statue
Sonic.
have to do with...
Please, I need to know.
He was given it by a friend. Something to do with Africa.
He never explained any more.
No. But I think it was important to him. Always on display. Why?
Czyli
It
coś
was
by-
carved by my father.
Oh, I see. I didn't know.
Imelda, I will do everything I can to find the killer.
Thank you, my dear.
And if the police ask,
Don't worry. You were never here.
sub judice
Dobrze.
was the key. I was going to
Czyli
have to
możemy
find
już
a way
wyjść
under the
bez policji.
conciergerie. I decided to head straight for the quayside on the Ile de la Cité. If there was a way of getting under the conciergerie, it would have to be from there. Canchon wasn't the type for messing about on the river. He was up to something down here. Something that got him killed.
Dobrze, to by było na tyle w tym odcinku, albo na razie. Zapraszam do lajkowania i subskrybowania mojego kanału na YouTubie. I... nie wiem co jeszcze. No, to na razie. Hejka.